Hi, welcome to Dice Control Dojo. I'm Phil, and I practice daily and share my tips so we can all get better at the casino. Today, we're in our detailed, the throw part of our series, and today we're talking about the thumb. Why is it important? What do we do with it? And how do we practice with it to make sure that we're doing the right thing? I've noticed a lot on my slow motion videos that I'm doing is a couple times my thumb gets off track, and I realized what I did. So I've been trying to correct that, and I wanted to share this correction with you so that you can see what I'm trying to do to make sure that I'm hitting the target I'm looking for. So a couple things. When you're setting your dice, we're talking about what we're supposed to do with that thumb on the follow through. So the follow through, you're coming up like this and you're releasing, right? So the dice come out of your hands. We're keeping this circle here, right? But what do we do with that thumb? So we want to ensure that that thumb is pointing at the landing zone. It's in the same path of where your landing zone is. Now on your follow through, the thumb is not supposed to be pointing at your landing zone. It's supposed to be in the same trajectory that you released the dice, so that this thumb, if I'm pointing, if my dice is supposed to be right here where that red die is, and I'm lining this up, and I throw, when I'm done, that thumb should be in the same realm as where that red die is. And I can see it in that window there in the mirror that my thumb is lined up exactly with that die that's sitting there. So that when I'm doing the follow through, it should be in that angle. Now, what is that supposed to look like? This should be, if you draw a line straight down, right? If you take a measuring tape and your thumb should be just like that, right? It should not be over here or over here. It shouldn't be at this angle or this angle. It should be perfectly set like this. And the reason why that is like that is so that these three can sit in the exact same spot, so that I know that my circle wasn't the issue when I released, that these stayed the same and my thumb stayed exactly perpendicular to the dice and where they wanted to be. So when you're practicing, you gotta take some video or make sure you're looking at your release, and is your dice pointing to the angle that you wanted it to go? Is your thumb looking right at that landing zone? And of course it's following through, so it's up here. But this dice, the thumb, needs to be in that direction. So a couple different things that I wanted to share with you is that my dice, when I'm doing this, right, I'm setting up like this and then I'm relaxing, right, so that the ledge is created and my thumb is just barely holding on. So on my throw, I'm pointing that thumb right at that landing zone, and it's releasing. So a couple things here. This has to be locked, right? I don't want anything moving. I want it all to stay the same. And I want to relax it, which I've been working on, relaxing that so that the dice release, not me forcing it off. And my thumb on a lot of these videos, slow motion, they're moving like this. It moves. This little muscle, it's got to be locked. It's got to be locked and pointed in the right direction. So how are you practicing that? Are you looking at that? Is your dice releasing? And are you sitting there like this, looking at your thumb? So I told you things that were happening with my thumb. And when I was at my last seminar, and we're going over that, we really were looking at how that thumb was lining up on the throw. And I was really interested in that, and I've been working on that. But when you get to that point on the release of your thumb, I noticed that my thumb would take a little angle. It would, because I'm thinking of pointing rather than just locking it and letting it go. So I'm like, oh, I'm pointing my thumb. Look, my thumb is like that. But then these dice go at an angle. These aren't lined up. And I was off. So I was making mistakes. So I had to come back to that correction. And that's what I did. So I come back to it, and then the release should be nice and relaxed. And this should stay the same that I was really mad at a couple days ago. But this thumb needs to be both frozen and relaxed. And that's a tough situation to try and get into, right? And it takes a lot of talent and skill to practice that. But everybody can do it. If you just get dedicated to the practice, you can do it. So as you're practicing these dice every day, that's where the thumb comes into play, that I practice releasing my dice down like that. Remember? Just so that I know what that pressure is when I'm throwing. So what happens when you over thumb your dice, right? If it's too hard and your dice don't come out of your hand the right way, that'll happen. If it's too loose, it may go too low. So you have to make sure your follow through on your dice stays consistent each and every time, that thumb is pointing in the right direction. It's got the right angle. It's locked and relaxed. Locked and relaxed. That's a tough one for me. Locked and relaxed. So I'm constantly looking at my angles and making sure that thumb is completely lined up, but yet not twisting out like that. So what do you guys do? When you got a problem, how do you correct? What does it look like? Send me your feedback. I try and videotape myself, and then every day I'm focused on my mirrors on making sure that everything is aligned where it's supposed to be. The thumb can be an important role in throwing, and you don't even realize it, because if it has too much pressure, too little pressure, and the follow through, if it's not pointed, if your thumb is this way, you got a problem. If it's this way, you got a problem. It's got to be perpendicular, perfectly aligned moving forward. So take a look at your thumb, see how it's playing in on a day-to-day basis with the videos you take for yourself, and see if you're seeing your thumb play an important role. It shouldn't. It is important, but the one thing you should be trying to do is get rid of that as a problem, and sometimes it rears its ugly head. So this is a very detailed thing about the thumb, but I really wanted to make sure you guys understood the process on why we are pointing it in the right direction, how it's locked yet relaxed, so that the dice come out all on its own. So join me tomorrow, where we're going to talk about the dice in the air. So what do the dice look like in the air? How are they supposed to look? What's going on when they don't look the way you want them to? And what do we do about that? So join me tomorrow where we talk about the dice in the air. And as always, make sure you do the best betting strategy there is, and that's to throw for a long, long time.